Hey guys, welcome to Bar Z. My name's Stan, and our target audience today is sales personnel, whether you're new or experienced at selling spray equipment. And we're going to specifically be talking about large spray equipment, which is spray booths, whether it be powder coat booths, liquid spray booths, both water-based and solvent-borne coatings. And then we're gonna dive into ovens a little bit and things like that, and things you should look out for when you're visiting your customer. So that's gonna be our target audience for today. I know we got a lot of new guys coming on, and I've seen some veterans retire lately, and I can't always get out to your job sites. A lot of you guys are up in Northern California and things like that, and a lot of this stuff you can do when you go visit your customer for the first time. So let's talk about the types of spray booths that you may want to install. There's three major types of liquid spray booths. First is just a simple open face industrial booth. And this is just literally like what I just described. It's an open face booth, maybe has one light in it. It's an open front, and it gives them an enclosure, and it gives them a place to pull over spray away. Pretty simple, you know. It's not these are the most economical ways to spray industrial finishes. If a customer states that he is concerned about dirt and debris from, you know, the surrounding areas within the plant getting into the spray booth, because the spray booth is literally pulling the air in through that open face, then you would talk to him about maybe putting a set of doors in here, filter doors, to turn it into an enclosed type booth. So you'd have a filter panel out here in front, so the air that's getting exhausted gets replaced through the doors. It gives them a sealed environment. Now that's all well and good, but you need to also look at where it's going in the plant. So let's talk about maybe this guy's running a fabrication shop, and he's cutting and welding and grinding and doing all this fabrication within the plant. You don't want to plop a spray booth down directly in the middle of a flammable type environment where open sparks and things can get to the spray booth. Fire code states 20 feet, but I would exceed that because you know, things happen. And inherent to a paint shop, you're always going to have some type of a paint mixing bench, flammable storage cabinets. There's more to it than just the spray booth. So that whole area needs to be isolated in some way from any source of ignition. All right, but 20 foot is your minimum. And some of these guys, it depends on what type of plant too. You know, some of these places you go into, you might be going into an industrial complex, and it's, you know, unit A, B, C, D, and these guys have really small shops, and they want to cram a spray booth in there. And they say, well, we'll just make the space do double duty, and don't worry, I won't weld when I'm painting. That's not an acceptable answer. It's not going to be allowed. So there are times where, unfortunately, you're going to have to tell your customer no, that you can't do it. So the words no need to be able to get those out of your mouth. I know it's tough sometimes, but the no is in my vocabulary. All right, so that's open type and enclosed type. Let's talk about another type, where we put conveyor openings in the side, and we actually run a conveyor through that booth. Now these have different requirements. Obviously they need a conveyor, but they're also going to need around that conveyor opening is a hazardous area, and the National Electric Code defines the interior of a spray booth as Class 1 Division 1, which is a full-on explosion-proof area. So if a customer says, and I've been asked this before, hey, it would be really convenient to put the control panel inside the booth, the answer is no, we don't do that. And directly adjacent to a Class 1 Division 1 area is a Class 1 Division 2 area. And that's around these conveyor openings. There's a bubble around the openings that's going to come out kind of like a radius around both conveyor openings. That's going to be defined. It's going to be either 5 feet or 3 feet, depending on the velocity of the booth, because we have to maintain a certain velocity within the conveyor openings and through the working chamber of the booth. So we have to have fresh air coming into the conveyor openings so we don't let overspray escape from the booth. All right. Let's also talk about another thing, and we've already talked about location a little bit, but let's talk about location of this exhaust duct. We've got an exhaust duct going out through the roof. Now this is defined by the Uniform Mechanical Code, and that exhaust duct is defined as a product conveying duct. It's not just a standard HVAC duct, and we can't treat it like that. There's requirements for product conveying ducts. The biggest one is 30 foot from the property line. So a lot of these smaller properties, and like in the instance I use where it's an industrial complex where unit A, B, C, and D are, there. A lot of times these properties aren't even 30 feet wide, or you'd have to be over 60 feet wide and put it dead center for it to be legal. There's sometimes where you can't make it legal, but it does need to be 30 foot from the property line. It has to be 6 foot above the roof line. We can't be near any door openings or window openings. There's definite requirements on the discharge of that duct, because we are putting out flammable constituents out that pipe. Now, another thing that you'll hear come out of the customer's mouths, there's two things you'll hear. Well, the code doesn't apply to me because I'm spraying water-based paint. Well, they can switch to solvent-based paint at any time that booth is set up for it, and the code does not make that distinction. Another thing you'll hear him say is, I don't need fire sprinklers because I spray water-based paint. He's going to need them, period. Liquid spray booths get fire sprinklers, whether it be dry chemical or water off the building. They get fire sprinklers no matter what. So don't let them pull you into that. Let's talk about types of roofs and the things to look out for. First of all is a standard wood panelized roof. I'll actually try to throw some pictures up here so you can see what a standard wood panelized roof looks like. And then next up is like a corrugated steel roof. And then let's talk about some of the older buildings, maybe the bow type truss buildings. Okay, so all three of those pictures, hopefully I found some pictures to put up in my video. But yeah, those are the three major types of buildings you're going to encounter. And they all take different methods to get through the roof. Let's talk about wood panelized first. Glue lams and main purlins in the building, we don't cut those. We offset around them or we move the booth to get around them. Sub purlins, which are the secondary purlins, we don't cut those. We either move the booth or put offsets in the duct to get around them. The 2x4s that create the panels, it's either a 2x4 or 2x6 construction. We do frame those head them out, and we can get through that portion of the roof. Here's a picture of a head out. Now, that is fine and dandy. We can get through that roof, but you also need to ask the question, what's the material up on the roof of the building? Is it a composite type roof? Is it a rubber roof? Is it a foam spray-on roof? There's certain types of roofs you don't want to touch. And you'll probably see on my quotes that roof bonding is not included. Cold patch supplied. So if we're going through a composite roof, which is like a 90-pound felt, the gravel sheets, just the standard asphalt type roof, we provide a cold patch. But if they want it hot mopped and tied back into the original roof, we're not roofers. We don't provide that. So when we say no roof bonding, that's what we mean. Also, if there's a foam roof there, we'll go through it, but we won't touch the foam portion of the roof. They need to call in a roofer, and he'll spray it in and tie it into the rest of the building. And the same thing goes with the rubber membrane type roofs. That's also known as a 3M roof, and that's rolled rubber sheeting. Very nice roofs, but again, specialized tools, and we don't deal with that. So we never provide roof bonding. So when we say no roof bonding included, that's what it means. All right. So those are the three major types of roofs you're going to encounter. Now let's move on to corrugated. Now with the wood panelized, your factory roof jack that you order from the spray booth company, whoever you're buying from, will work just fine with those. Now, when you get into the corrugated roofs, you're going to need a corrugated jack, and those can be fabricated. Bar Z does fabricate those on a per job basis. They're very expensive to make a corrugated jack, but they can be done. Actually, I'll flash a picture here of a corrugated roof flashing. But we can get through those roofs, and you can't, in a metal building, we cut no purlins ever. So we have to miss them on the way up. So either relocate your booth or provide ductwork offsets so we can hit them and make sure we've got headroom and things like that to do it. Now, and then the last type of roof is the truss type building, and never do we cut trusses. We can't cut trusses. So those all require, photograph your work. When you go out to visit your customer, if you're not sure about getting through the roof, photograph it. Photograph the roof really carefully and get all angles, and photograph the area where you intend to go through the roof, and email them over to me, and we'll come up with a plan. All right. So those are the main things to look out for when selling a liquid spray booth. Powder booths are a little easier. We don't have to go through the roof there. Most of the time we dump right back into the building. There are times where we'd a separate dust collector. It depends on what type you have. There's spray to waste with the small, it's like an open face type unit, and all we have up on top, instead of going through the roof, we'd have a HEPA box up on top of the fan. We just blow the air back into the building. Simple, not too bad to maintain, but total spray to waste. Every bit of powder gets thrown in the trash, so they can mix and match and do whatever they want. So this is kind of a batch type system. And then the larger ones, which are reclaim, they're going to have a separate dust collector and a separate duct run, and usually those are very noisy, and you need to address your customer's expectations right up front. Don't say anything about noise, and then we get it installed and he goes, oh my God, that thing's running 100 decibels. And the whole room is really loud. So manage your customer's expectations and say, hey, this thing's going to be loud. Do you want to spend the extra money to get the dust collector outside? Which, usually got a wall penetration. We have to run a horizontal duct out through the wall to put in the collector outside. So that's definitely a thing, because people have to be in that paint booth 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and noise will wear on you pretty quick. All right. So those are a few things to look out for on powder coating booths, whether you're selling the GEMA Smart booth or the GEMA Ultra booth or whatever the heck that one is. I've seen only 2 of them, but the GEMA booths, the dust collectors are quite loud, and they've got a separate blower unit and things, and that could go easily out on a pad outside. So those aren't really a requirement for your 30-foot rule, because we're not discharging any flammable constituents. It's just powder. That's why you can blow the air back into the building. It's so clean, we can blow the air back into the building from a powder booth. But who wants the noise? Always address that before it becomes an issue. All right. Maybe we should talk about ovens a little bit. Let's talk about airlines. First of all, Bar Z doesn't do any actual paint application equipment, whether it be a powder gun or a liquid spray gun, and whether it be from GEMA or DeVilbiss or whoever, SATA. We don't mess around with paint application equipment and startup and customer training, especially. We don't know enough about spray guns to do that. So we're not experienced in actually pulling the trigger on a spray gun, but we will help you install it. If you say, hey, I got some Graco pumps I want put in, and I need fluid lines put in for the paint, and then I need paint heaters out at the booth, and then I'm going to airless guns, whatever, air assisted airless, whatever. We can put that in for you, but we're not going to start it up. So that is the limit of my involvement, is the actual installation. So we would work with you on the install, and I like to be around during startup. I love to watch you guys work, so I usually hang out during startup, but I'm not going to do your startup, okay? I will start up your booth, but I will not start up your application equipment. All right. And then as far as airlines go, you guys usually provide to us some type of dryers, whatever dryers, or, whether it be desiccant, oil coalescing filters, or just plain old water traps, regulators, whatever. You guys supply us with that equipment, and we supply the piping and the installation for all that stuff. So we do that for you. All right. And we'll connect pretty much anywhere in the building for you. Usually we do a 20-foot point connection on air. Let's talk about electrical on your spray booths. You're always going to want to get the control panel from your booth manufacturer. This is going to control your fan and your lights and your air solenoid, and they're going to give you a complete package. Say a booth with doors, there's going to be door limit switches on there. An open face booth, there's no door limit switches required. But the control panel has provisions for that. So you do want to get the control package for them. So Bar Z does not provide controls. Those are all on we call it by others, but we do that. And typically we would wire the booth like a toaster. So the booth is ready to run in all respects. All the customer has to do is drop power into it. So they are responsible for, we call that a 0-foot point of connection. They bring the power over, they land it to our control panel, and then we do start up on the booth. If you require more than that, if you say, hey, I need the customer's going to get it within 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever, that needs to be specified in your bid request. All right. I guess we could talk about ovens now. And I've seen a lot of customers that say, hey, I've already got an oven, I want to reuse it. Well, there's a phenomenon known as solvent loading, and not all ovens are created equal. And that's a different class of oven. Ovens are always calculated with an exchange rate, and on the tag on the oven, if it's a solvent-borne oven, if we're running parts in there that we just sprayed with a solvent-borne paint, we need to be able to evacuate anything that gets evaporated out of that. Otherwise, we build up we come up to the lower explosive limit of the material, and eventually the oven explodes. So they usually go between 10 and 15% exchange rate. That's the amount of air that's exhausted out of an oven to the amount of fresh air that's induced into the oven during bake cycle. This is always done from the factory, and there'll be a placard right on the oven somewhere saying, this booth will accept 20 gallons an hour in a solvent atmosphere. So that's pretty important, and that doesn't matter whether it's gas-fired or electric, either one. You're going to run across that. And then another thing too is, here in California at least, we've got the new low NOx burners that have to be installed. And those are a whole different kettle of fish. And we want to make sure that these ovens are test fired at the factory, make sure they put the air handler together and fire the actual air handler for the oven at the factory, so we don't have any startup problems. And there are times when the authority having jurisdiction, which is either South Coast Air Quality Management District or all the different pollution districts that are all across the great state of California, they're going to want proof that this oven doesn't put out, the NOx levels. And that's third-party testing from a laboratory. And you don't want to be responsible for that. That can cost a lot of money. They roll up in a van with all this equipment on board, and they hook up the oven on the exhaust pipe, the inlet, all over the place, and they run an 8-hour test, and it's really, really expensive. And so you want to exclude third-party testing on anything that requires low NOx. And I would exclude, when you first do your quote, if you use a standard burner, just a catalog model burner on an oven, I would exclude low NOx upgrades. If they say, hey, low NOx is, they come back to you later, say, hey, low NOx is required, you say, hey, well, that costs more money. And it does. From the factory, it's going to cost more money. Let's talk about gas pressures and what's required to run a gas-fired oven. Now, typical residential type pressure is 8 inches of the water column, which is just a fraction of a pound. It's very little pressure. And that's what they run to all residences. Now your industrial buildings, sometimes they'll have a little higher. You know, they might have a 2-pound line, 2 PSI. And I've seen them go as high as 5 PSI within the building. But you need to be able to check gas pressure easily. Go out and put eyeballs on the meter. And usually on the regulator, which looks a lot like a compressed air regulator, big diaphragm regulator, you'll see on the regulator, it's usually stamped somewhere what the secondary pressure is. It'll have a primary pressure and a secondary pressure. The gas pressure coming in off the street is typically about 30 PSI. And then the secondary pressure is anywhere from water column, 7 to 14 inches water column, all the way up to 2 to 5 PSI on your secondary pressure. So check that regulator and make sure they've got a nice regulator installed. If not, the customer is going to have to call their service provider, whether it be PG&E or SoCal Gas or whoever, and say, hey, I need a meter upgrade because I'm going to be running an oven. And the rule of thumb is, if you want to know what it takes to fire an oven, every 1 million BTU of heat that oven needs, it's going to fire, it needs 1,000 cubic feet an hour, CFH, of fuel. So that's your volume required. And then they're going to state, your oven manufacturer is going to state what kind of pressure they need. A lot of times it's down, 1 to 2 PSI, 2 to 3 PSI, but get that data from the oven company, go in there prepared for it, and be prepared to put eyeballs on their gas meter and see if you need to tell the customer he needs a gas upgrade. This is a snag for a lot of people because these utility companies don't move fast. We've had ovens that get ordered, get installed, and we're sitting there waiting for gas. And the customer said, hey, I put in my request 8 months ago and I still don't have my meter yet. And but it's a real thing. So we can't talk to the gas company on their behalf. The customer has to request it. They're the customer of the service provider. So we can't do that for them. All right, so that's gas fired. Those are electric. Now your electric ovens, these are power hogs. So you would want to see 480 volt, high amperage building. You'd want to see a 1400 amp service or better inside the building, because we're going to, depending on the size of the oven, we might ask for 600 amps of 480 volt or 400 amps of 480 volt. So it can really be a killer as far as that goes. But it gets you away from your gas pressure and gas hassles with the service companies, and it gets you away from the low NOx requirements required by the environmental companies or the environmental agencies. So electric is a thing, but they're expensive, and the wiring and the service is pretty substantial. What else can we talk about? Let's talk about air handlers and air makeup. Now, spray booths where we've got a vent pipe going out through the roof, we need if they close up on the first cold winter day, they're going to close all the windows and all the doors in that building. And that building is sealed up tight as a drum. We got a booth sitting there running because we still want to paint. So our building all of a sudden goes negative pressure because we're sucking all this air out of the building and we got no way to get it back in. So maybe we have multiple booths. Maybe we have 4 of these open face booths inside the building pulling air out. And we need to figure out a way to get air back in. Now you can do 3 types. One is just simple gravity. Gravity air makeup, whether it be louvers in the wall, roof vents, just whirligig type roof vents. There is a louver we can put in underneath the skylights that allow air back into the building from the ceiling. So there's a louvered skylight to allow air back into the building. As long as we come up with a equal to or greater than the square footage of the front of that booth, they consider that an air makeup for the spray booth. They do not honor, oh well, I'll just leave a door open or I'll just leave a window open. They don't honor that because doors and windows can be closed. So air makeup is always required if you're pulling air out of a building. The other way to do it, that is considered just a gravity air makeup. The other way is a forced air makeup, where we put like a squirrel cage type blower on the roof, whether it be a swamp cooler up on a curb or something like that, and we just duct it through the roof and then discharge it into the building. So that is a powered air makeup. And now all of a sudden, if maybe it is the cold winter day, and all we're doing is cranking cold air back in the building, and everybody's freezing, and the paint's not working because maybe we're blowing in 50-degree air and our paint wants 70. Well, then there's heated air makeup, and you can go gas-fired, or you can go electric on the air makeup. Now, the air makeups are quite large as well. You know, your bare minimum 1,000,000 BTU on your air makeup, heated air makeups. So, and it's the same rules that apply to the ovens that I was talking about, low NOx requirements, gas line requirements, things like that. You can put it in through the wall. You could do a vertical air makeup through the wall. There's another thing you need to look out for when you're in earthquake zones. Putting air makeups on roofs of buildings that weigh 5,000–6,000 pounds, they would need probably a substantial amount of building reinforcement to hold that weight, which means sending plans out to structural engineers, reinforcing the purlins and the girts and things inside the building, building roof curbs up on top, dropping your air makeup on top of a fabricated platform to carry the load of that air makeup system on top of the building. That can get expensive. Quite often it's more economical to put in a vertical unit, pour a small concrete slab outside, go vertical with the air makeup, and come through the wall. So always weigh your options there. Check the customer's location, make sure he's got room to put these things in outside the building. But that's a very viable option for air makeup. So those are the three types of air makeups that are going to be required almost for any type of spray booth. And at that point, all we're doing is dumping air back into the building. And that what we're dumping into the building makes up for what the booth's pulling out. And those are not considered attached systems. Finally, a spray booth that maybe is enclosed would have what they call an attached air makeup system, where the air makeup is dedicated just to the painting operation. So this could be a vertical unit that sits maybe inside the plant, and we duct that air makeup out through the roof of the building with just a simple duct, and we pull outside fresh air, run it through the burner, and then pipe it directly into the spray booth. And now we've got an attached air makeup, and the spray booth basically ignores the rest of the plant. Whatever the plant is doing as far as temperature and air quality, the spray booth has its own tempered, filtered air makeup. And that's superior to everything, but again, it's just money, but those are all the options that you can offer to your customers. I know this video is probably getting long. I'm gonna wrap it up here pretty quick, I promise. Let's say he didn't want to take up the floor space for a vertical air makeup sitting next to the spray booth. The booth can be engineered with I-beams, whatever, where we could put that air makeup up on top of the spray booth, as long as your customer has the headroom. Check your building height. As long as the customer has the headroom, we put the air makeup right on top of the spray booth, up on top of an I-beam structure. The booth's already going to come reinforced, ready to take the load. We're not loading the customer's building up, and all we do is run an air duct into the air makeup and out through the exhaust system, and you're done. And this is going to be enclosed booths only. This wouldn't do any good on an open face booth, but it would be a good viable option for an enclosed type booth, whether it be a car style or truck or auto truck, or we make very large ones. Heck, we make them for trains. So any size booth would accept air makeups or multiple air makeups. All right, leave some comments below. All you sales guys, leave a comment below, a question, anything you want me to cover. If you think I need a follow-up video to answer some of your questions, I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff helps you when you go out into the field and go meet your customers for the first time, and they don't know what they want. They're looking to you for advice, and it turns you into the shell answer guy. You know, if they've got a question on location or how I go about it, or my workflow through the building or whatever, you need to be the go-to guy, and you'll have a customer for life. All right, guys. I hope I covered all your questions, and drop a comment below with anything creative you want to talk about. Thanks for watching.